The morning sun cast long shadows across Serpent Canyon, illuminating the jagged rock formations in hues of amber and gold. Marcus Reeves stood on his cabin porch, scanning the terrain with the practiced eye of someone who had spent years reading landscapes for threats. At 52, his body remained lean and weathered, like the desert itself. His movements were economical, deliberate, a man who wasted neither energy nor words. The cabin sat perched on an elevated shelf overlooking the canyon's northern entrance, invisible from below, but offering commanding views of the winding passage that cut through the mountains. To most, it appeared to be nothing more than a recluse's hideaway, but closer inspection would reveal subtle security measures that betrayed the owner's background. Marcus sipped black coffee from a metal cup, his weathered hands wrapped around it, as he watched a hawk circle lazily above the canyon. The stillness of the morning was a comfort he had come to cherish after decades of chaos. 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan with force reconnaissance. The elite special operations capability of the Marine Corps had left him with an appreciation for silence that few civilians could understand. He placed his cup on the wooden railing and reached for the high-powered binoculars that never left his side. The canyon below remained quiet, just as it had been for the past 3 months. That was good. Quiet meant normal, and normal meant safe. The passage, known locally as Serpent Canyon for its winding, snake-like path to the mountains, stretched nearly 7 miles from north to south. At its narrowest points, barely wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass side by side. At its widest, perhaps 200 yards across. Its sheer walls rose up to 500 feet in places, creating a natural corridor that had been used by indigenous people for centuries before becoming a favored route for smugglers in modern times. This was why Marcus had chosen this location 3 years ago. After 22 years of service, for Purple Hearts and a Silver Star, he'd sought solitude, yes, but also purpose. The border lay just 17 miles south. This canyon represented both a vulnerability and an opportunity. Time for rounds, he muttered to himself, a habit developed during long solo reconnaissance missions. Speaking aloud helped maintain focus, combat the isolation. He entered the cabin and moved to what appeared to be a closed bedroom door. Behind it lay not sleeping quarters, but a surveillance center. 3 monitors displayed feeds from strategically placed cameras throughout the canyon. Another showed thermal imaging of the canyon floor. A police scanner quietly crackled in the background. On the wall hung maps marked with notations, sight lines, blind spots, estimated travel times between points. Marcus checked each feed methodically, looking for anything out of place. Satisfied, he turned to a heavy footlocker beside the desk and entered a combination. Inside lay his service weapon, a Beretta M9, and his personal choice for canyon security, a customized M40A6 sniper rifle, similar to what he'd used in his final years with Force Recon. He didn't remove them, simply verified their condition before securing the locker again. His morning routine continued with physical training, a regimen modified from his Marine days but no less disciplined. Pull-ups on a bar mounted in the doorway. Push-ups on the porch. A 5-mile run along the rim of the canyon, which doubled as a security check of his perimeter sensors. The sun climbed higher as he ran, illuminating the desert landscape. Creosote bushes and mesquite dotted the higher elevations, giving way to sparse grasses and cacti. The beauty wasn't lost on Marcus, though his appreciation was always tempered by tactical assessment. Every feature represented either cover or exposure. 2 hours later, showered and changed, he drove his modified Jeep Wrangler down a barely visible track toward town. King Snake was a small community of ranchers, border patrol employees, and retirees, population 1,246 according to the faded sign. Marcus visited only when necessary for supplies and to maintain the minimal social connections he allowed himself. The general store doubled as the town's social hub. As Marcus entered, conversations paused briefly before resuming. He nodded to a few familiar faces but didn't engage. This was his rhythm, present but apart. "The usual, Marcus?" asked Eleanor, the sixth-something owner who had long ago stopped trying to draw him into extended conversation. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, placing a short list on the counter. While Eleanor gathered his supplies, Sheriff Dave Harkness entered. Unlike most in town who respected Marcus's privacy, Harkness made a point of engaging him. "Reeves," he said with a nod. "Been quiet up your way?" "Nothing to report," Marcus answered, his tone neutral but final. The sheriff lingered. "Got word of increased activity south of here. Thought you might have noticed something from your eagle's nest." This caught Marcus's attention. "What kind of activity?" Border Patrol picked up chatter. "Cartel's looking for new routes. Losing too many shipments on the main roads." Marcus maintained his impassive expression, but his mind was already processing the implications. "I'll keep an eye out." "You do that," Harkness said. "And remember our agreement. You see something, you call it in. Don't take matters into your own hands." The warning was delivered casually, but carried weight. Marcus nodded once. The agreement had been established after an incident 18 months prior, when he'd intercepted 3 armed smugglers in the canyon and delivered them, subdued but unharmed, to the sheriff's station. No charges against Marcus had been filed. The smugglers had enough illegal weapons to ensure that, but Harkness had made it clear that vigilantism wouldn't be tolerated, former Force Recon or not. Eleanor returned with the supplies. "Added some of that coffee you like. Just came in yesterday." "Appreciate it," Marcus said, paying in cash as always. The drive back to his cabin was spent in thought, the sheriff's words echoing. Increased cartel activity meant potential threats, and threats meant preparation. Force Recon had taught him to always plan 3 steps ahead. Back at the cabin, he stored his supplies and returned to the surveillance room. He adjusted the camera settings for increased sensitivity and range, then sat at the communications center to scan frequencies used by smugglers in the past. As evening approached, Marcus settled on his porch with field glasses, scanning the canyon with practiced precision. His mind drifted to his first deployment with Force Recon, Operation Iraqi Freedom. His unit had been tasked with deep reconnaissance behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence on opposition movements. He'd learned then how to become invisible, how to read terrain, how to predict human behavior in hostile environments. Later deployments had refined those skills. Afghanistan, with its mountain passes and ambush-friendly terrain, had taught lessons directly applicable to his current surroundings. Memories of Staff Sergeant Collins surfaced, his team leader during his second deployment. "Terrain is your ally or your enemy, Reeves. Never neutral. Learn to make it work for you." Collins hadn't survived their third mission together, but his wisdom had saved Marcus countless times since. As darkness fell, Marcus activated the night vision on his surveillance system. He'd installed military-grade equipment, modified to his specifications. Some of it wasn't strictly legal for civilian use, but out here, such distinctions mattered little. The canyon transformed in the green hue of the monitors, a ghostly landscape of shadows and light. His satellite phone rang, one of only 3 people who had the number. "Reeves," he answered. "It's Mike. Mike Tanner, former Force Recon, now Border Patrol. They'd served together in Helmand Province. Thought you should know, we intercepted a group 2 days ago. Different operators than usual. Better equipped, better trained." Marcus listened as Mike detailed the encounter. They were testing defenses, not seriously trying to get through. Mapping response times, patrol patterns. Probing action, Marcus said, the military terminology coming naturally. "Exactly. And they were heading in your direction before we engaged. Just wanted you on alert." After ending the call, Marcus performed another check of his systems before preparing for sleep. Force Recon had also taught him to rest when possible, another lesson that had kept him alive. His bedroom was Spartan, single bed, dresser, nightstand with a reading lamp and a dog-eared copy of Gates of Fire. No photos adorned the walls, no mementos beyond a small wooden box containing his medals and a folded American flag. He'd left sentimentality behind years ago. Sleep came quickly but remained light. Years of combat had trained his body to rest while maintaining awareness. The slightest unusual sound would wake him instantly. Morning arrived with no incidents. Marcus resumed his routine, but with heightened vigilance. After his run, he took the jeep and drove to several outlying observation posts he'd established around the canyon perimeter. Each contained cached supplies, water, ammunition, first aid, concealed from casual discovery. He verified their condition and returned to the cabin by noon. The afternoon was spent maintaining equipment. He field-stripped and cleaned his weapons with practiced efficiency, the motions so ingrained they required little conscious thought. This allowed his mind to plan, to consider scenarios and responses. If the cartel was seeking new routes, Serpent Canyon would eventually draw their attention. Its remote location, minimal civilian traffic, and direct path to Interstate 10 made it a logistical prize. Marcus had chosen it for precisely these reasons, a strategic choke point that one man with the right training could monitor effectively. As dusk approached, he received a text from Eleanor. Strangers in town asking questions. Careful. No further details needed. In a community this small, outsiders were instantly noticeable. Marcus checked his surveillance feeds again, then moved to the gun safe hidden beneath a trapdoor in the pantry. Unlike the footlocker, which contained his service weapons, this safe held his insurance policy, firearms and equipment that would never be officially linked to him. He took inventory, but removed nothing. Not yet. Dinner was simple: beans, rice, and jerky, habits formed during deployments when nutrition was functional rather than enjoyable. He ate at his surveillance desk, watching the monitors. The canyon remained quiet, but Marcus felt the familiar tension building at the base of his neck, the sixth sense that had saved his life numerous times. Something was coming, and Marcus Reeves would be ready. The next morning broke with heavy clouds threatening rain. Unusual for the season, but not unprecedented. Marcus adjusted his routine, completing his perimeter check earlier before the weather deteriorated. The desert transformed during rain, washes becoming deadly flash flood channels within minutes. The canyon itself was relatively safe due to its elevation, but access routes could quickly become impassable. He was checking the eastern sensor array when he noticed fresh tire tracks, not from his Jeep, which used a different approach. Someone had been here within the last 12 hours, their vehicle heavier than a typical passenger car based on the impression depth. They'd stopped approximately 50 yards from his sensor, then turned around. Marcus knelt, examining the tracks more closely. The tread pattern was familiar, similar to those used on cartel vehicles he'd encountered during joint operations with Border Patrol. Heavy-duty, all-terrain, designed for rough desert conditions. Reconnaissance. Just as Mike had warned. He photographed the tracks before continuing his inspection with increased caution, hand resting on his sidearm. No other signs of intrusion appeared, but the message was clear. His position had been compromised. Back at the cabin, Marcus initiated enhanced security protocols. Additional motion sensors were activated. Cameras were adjusted to cover previous blind spots. A secondary communications system, independent from the main power grid, was brought online. The rain began around noon, a steady downpour that reduced visibility and created a constant background noise. Marcus used the opportunity to move additional equipment from its storage beneath the cabin to more accessible locations. If confrontation came, response time would be critical. By late afternoon, the storm intensified. Thunder echoed through the canyon, creating false positives on the seismic sensors. Marcus manually filtered these, looking for patterns that wouldn't match natural phenomena. His satellite phone rang again. 3 vehicles spotted heading north on Rattlesnake Trail. Mike reported without preamble. Heavily loaded, armed escorts. They're taking the back approach to your canyon. Rattlesnake Trail was an old mining road that connected to the southern entrance of Serpent Canyon. Rarely used even by locals, it would allow approach with minimal chance of detection by routine patrols. ETA? Marcus asked, already moving to the tactical map on his wall. 2 hours, maybe 3 with this weather. Composition? Lead and follow vehicles appear to be technical pickup trucks with mounted weapons. Middle vehicle larger, possibly a modified panel van or small box truck. At least 8 personnel visible. Marcus processed this information. Anyone responding? A pause. Officially? No assets available due to weather and an incident at the main crossing. Unofficially, Watcher 6. Translation. Mike might try to provide backup, but nothing official was coming. After ending the call, Marcus moved with practiced efficiency. This wasn't his first time preparing for combat with overwhelming odds. Force Recon specialized in operating behind enemy lines, outmanned and outgunned, but leveraging superior training and terrain knowledge. He changed into combat attire, not military uniform, but practical desert camouflage, reinforced in key areas. Ceramic plates slid into a low-profile carrier beneath his outer layer. Not full body armor, which would restrict movement too much for his strategy, but enough to protect vital organs from small arms fire. Next came weapon selection. The M40A6 was an easy choice for distance work. For closer engagements, he selected an M4 carbine with specialized optics. Sidearm, the familiar weight of his Beretta. Additional equipment followed: communications, night vision, first aid supplies, water. Throughout the preparation, Marcus's mind remained calm, focused. Combat clarity, the state of heightened awareness without panic that separated survivors from casualties. His breathing remained steady, his movements precise. Outside, the storm continued, visibility reduced to less than 100 yards. Lightning illuminated the canyon in strobing flashes, followed by thunder that resonated between the rock walls. Nature providing cover and concealment for both sides. Marcus performed final checks of his surveillance system, noting that the southern sensors had gone dark. Not malfunction, deliberate tampering. They were being cautious, thorough. These weren't ordinary smugglers, but a professional team. The realization brought not fear, but a familiar intensity of focus. During his final deployment in Afghanistan, his foreman team had held a mountain pass against a force of 23 insurgents for 9 hours until extraction arrived. The odds here were similar, perhaps worse. But unlike Afghanistan, this was his territory. Every rock, every shadow, every potential firing position had been memorized, categorized, integrated into his defensive plans. The canyon would become a weapon in its own right. Marcus took one final look at his cabin, the home he'd built after leaving behind the war, only to find it following him here. Then he moved into the storm, becoming part of the landscape, invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. The rain plastered his clothing to his skin as he moved to his first position, a natural alcove 200 feet above the canyon floor, with clear lines of sight to the southern approach. Here, he would observe, gather intelligence, determine the cartel's exact strength and intention before deciding how to proceed. Force Recon's primary mission had always been intelligence gathering. Direct action was secondary, undertaken only when necessary or specifically ordered. Marcus would honor that training now, waiting and watching before committing to engagement. As darkness fell, he settled into position, the familiar weight of the rifle a comfort against the growing storm. Rainwater channeled away from his position, carefully selected to remain usable even in severe weather. Through his scope, the canyon floor appeared empty, but the southern entrance would soon change that. Marcus Reeves had spent his life preparing for moments like this, defending territory against those who would violate it. The difference now was that the territory was his own, the decision to fight his alone. No orders, no backup, no extraction plan. Just a Marine doing what he'd been trained to do, stand his ground and protect what lay behind him. The storm passed by midnight, leaving behind a transformed landscape. Water pooled in low areas of the canyon floor, reflecting the emerging stars like scattered mirrors. Marcus remained in position, his patience honed by countless surveillance operations. The thermal scope revealed nothing moving below, but his instincts told him the quiet wouldn't last. At 0213, movement appeared at the southern entrance. Thermal signatures of vehicles, engines hot against the cooler background. Marcus counted 3 distinct heat sources moving slowly, lights off, navigating by starlight and familiarity with the terrain. Professional. Cautious. Through his night vision, details emerged. The lead vehicle was a modified pickup, a technical in military parlance, with what appeared to be a mounted .50 caliber machine gun. The middle vehicle was larger, a panel van with reinforced suspension to handle the rough terrain. The rear vehicle matched the first, creating a protective envelope around the central transport. Marcus documented everything with the small digital camera attached to his scope, the images feeding directly to an encrypted hard drive back at the cabin. Evidence, should he survive to use it. The convoy halted approximately 1 mile into the canyon. Figures emerged, moving with tactical discipline. Not careless smugglers, but trained personnel deploying in coordinated patterns. From the lead vehicle established perimeter security. 2 from the rear vehicle moved to elevated positions on either side of the canyon, primitive but effective overwatch. The central van remained sealed, its contents, human or otherwise, secure for now. Marcus noted their positions, their weapons, their communication patterns. One figure stood out, taller than the others, issuing directions with the confidence of command. The team leader. Marcus mentally designated him Alpha. For 40 minutes, the convoy remained stationary. A reconnaissance halt, standard procedure when entering potentially hostile territory. Testing for response. Establishing security before proceeding. Marcus could have engaged. The M40A6 was zeroed for this exact range, but Force Recon discipline held. Gather intelligence first. Determine threat level, mission parameters, potential civilian involvement. At 0256, the convoy resumed movement, advancing another 2 miles before halting at a wider section of the canyon. This position offered multiple escape routes via smaller side canyons, a tactical choice that further confirmed these weren't ordinary smugglers. The perimeter expanded, more personnel emerging from the vehicles. Marcus counted 12 armed individuals now, equipped with what appeared to be AR-15 variants and body armor. Serious firepower for a smuggling operation. What happened next surprised him. Rather than continuing through the canyon under cover of darkness, the logical choice for contraband, they began establishing what looked like a temporary base camp. Portable lights carefully shielded from aerial observation. Communication equipment. One figure, not Alpha, unfolded what appeared to be maps or diagrams. This wasn't a transit operation. It was an advanced team preparing the way for something larger. Marcus eased back from his position, moving silently to a secondary observation post that offered a different angle. New information emerged. The central van's rear doors opened briefly, revealing not drugs or weapons, but electronic equipment. Sophisticated gear, similar to what he'd used for communications interception in Afghanistan. They're mapping the entire area, he whispered to himself, the realization crystallizing. Setting up for a major operation. The cartel was establishing a new route, but this wasn't a test run, it was infrastructure development. Every major smuggling corridor required support, communications, security, contingency planning. This team was preparing Serpent Canyon to become a permanent pipeline. By 0400, Marcus had seen enough. He withdrew, moving through the darkness with practiced silence, leaving no trace of his presence. The return to his cabin took longer than normal. Indirect routes, careful backtracking, old habits ensuring he wasn't followed. Inside, he downloaded the images and began analysis, marking positions on his tactical map. If this advanced team succeeded, Serpent Canyon would transform from his quiet refuge to a cartel highway. The implications extended beyond his personal sanctuary. A new smuggling route would bring violence, corruption, and death to the surrounding communities. As dawn approached, Marcus made his decision. Force Recon had taught him that sometimes the best defense was to disrupt enemy operations before they fully developed. Not through direct confrontation. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but through strategic intelligence gathering and targeted pressure. He would need to learn more first. The Cartel advance team appeared professional, but every organization had vulnerabilities, internal tensions, logistical requirements. Find the weak points, then apply pressure precisely. When the sun rose, Marcus caught 2 hours of combat sleep, the shallow, alert rest that restored energy while maintaining situational awareness. Upon waking, he reviewed the night's intelligence gathering once more before securing the data and preparing to move. His first step would be town. Information flowed through King Snake like water through desert washes, brief but revealing to those who knew where to look. The drive was tense, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors for surveillance. The cartel's presence changed everything. His isolation, once protective, now represented vulnerability. No backup, no support structure. King Snake appeared normal at first glance, the morning routine of a small border town unfolding as usual. But Marcus detected subtle differences. Fewer locals on the streets. Conversations that paused as he passed. The atmosphere had shifted. He parked the Jeep behind Eleanor's store rather than in front, entered through the back entrance. She looked up from inventory, concern evident in her expression. "You got my message," she said, not a question. "Tell me about the strangers." Eleanor glanced toward the front of the store, ensuring privacy. 3 men, 2 days ago. Well-dressed for around here. Asked about property up by your canyon. Who owned what land? Claimed to be from some development company. She shook her head. Nobody was buying it. Details, Marcus prompted, the terse request familiar to those who knew him. Black SUV, tinted windows. Leader did most of the talking. Tall, maybe 6'2", scar along his jawline. Very polite, but something cold behind it. Left big tips at the diner, like they were buying goodwill. The description matched Alpha from the convoy. Advanced reconnaissance, establishing area awareness before the operational team arrived. Thorough. They asked about me specifically? Eleanor hesitated. Not by name. Asked if anyone lived up in the canyon area. Sheriff told them it was mostly empty land, some private holdings. Didn't volunteer anything about you. She leaned closer. But they knew Marcus. The questions they were asking, they were looking for you. The implications were clear. His presence wasn't a secret to locals, but outsiders would have no reason to know about a reclusive ex-Marine unless they'd done extensive intelligence work, or unless his past had caught up with him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Anyone talk to them who shouldn't have? Joe Mercer, Eleanor said, naming the town drunk who survived on odd jobs and charity. They bought him drinks at the bar. Don't know what he told them. Marcus nodded, processing. Joe knew about his cabin, had even done some construction work during the initial building. Nothing about the defensive modifications or equipment, but enough to confirm occupation and approximate location. They still around? Left the same day? But Eleanor paused, choosing her words carefully. 2 more groups came through yesterday. 4 men in each, didn't stay long. Just drove through town, looking. Different vehicles, but same type. Expensive, out of place here. Reconnaissance elements, establishing paternoflight data for the area. Standard procedure before a major operation. The cartel was investing significant resources in this new route. Sheriff no. Said he'd keep an eye out, but you know Dave. Unless they break a law in his jurisdiction. Marcus understood. Small-town sheriffs survived by recognizing which battles they could win. A full cartel advance team represented forces beyond local law enforcement capability. He purchased supplies, more than usual, preparation for extended isolation, and left through the back door. As he loaded the Jeep, Mike Tanner's Border Patrol vehicle pulled alongside. "Thought I might find you here," Mike said, stepping out. The years hadn't softened his appearance, still the hard-edged Marine beneath the government uniform. "Got your message about unusual activity." They moved behind the building, away from potential observation. Convoy entered the canyon last night, Marcus reported. 3 vehicles, 12 personnel minimum. Professional setup, advanced team preparing for larger operation. Mike's expression darkened. Matches what we're hearing. Sinaloa's establishing new routes after losing ground to rivals further west. Word is they're planning something big, not just drugs, major human trafficking operation. Using established catfish to distract resources. Catfish was their old term for decoy operations meant to draw attention while the real mission proceeded elsewhere. Standard tactics, effective when Border Patrol resources were already stretched thin. Timeline? Marcus asked. Soon. Days, not weeks. They're moving fast because the opportunity is narrow. We've got a major operation planned on the western routes next month, and they've leaked our deployment details. They know we'll be undermanned here. The pieces aligned. The convoy, the reconnaissance, the accelerated timeline. This wasn't just another smuggling attempt, but a coordinated strategic move by one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the hemisphere. What's coming officially? Marcus asked, meaning law enforcement response. Mike looked away briefly. Nothing substantial. Can't redirect forces based on unconfirmed intelligence. Would need hard evidence, and even then, he left the implication hanging. Politics, budgets, jurisdictional disputes. The familiar bureaucratic tangle that had frustrated them both during military operations returned in civilian form. You've got drone surveillance. Mike nodded. Limited. I can maybe get one overhead tonight, but coverage will be spotty. They're using jammers, pretty sophisticated ones. Similar to what we saw in Helmand. Another concerning detail. Military-grade counter-surveillance technology in cartel hands represented significant escalation. They spoke for 10 more minutes, exchanging information and rough contingency plans. Nothing official. Mike's position wouldn't allow direct involvement, but the understanding between former teammates remained. As Marcus prepared to leave, Mike gripped his shoulder. Don't engage alone. These aren't ordinary bangers. Intel suggests ex-military among them, possibly former Mexican special forces. Some might even be deserters from U.S. training programs. Noted, Marcus replied, the non-committal response familiar to both of them. In force recon, circumstances often dictated actions beyond operational parameters. The drive back to his cabin took longer as Marcus used counter-surveillance techniques, irregular speeds, occasional stops, alternate routes, to detect potential followers. The desert landscape provided both advantage and challenge. Minimal cover meant pursuers would be visible, but so would evasive maneuvers. Approaching the canyon, he parked the Jeep in a concealed depression he'd prepared for exactly this scenario and proceeded on foot. New tracks marked the access road, recent, within hours. Someone had approached his cabin during his absence. Marcus diverted to a hidden observation point, watching his property through binoculars for 20 minutes before confirming no immediate presence. Still, the intrusion changed his approach. The cabin might be compromised. He entered through a concealed access point behind the structure, sweeping each room systematically before confirming no intruders remained. The search had been professional. Items returned almost perfectly to position, but with subtle differences. They'd focused on his communication equipment, maps, anything suggesting his awareness of their operation. They'd also left a message. Not written, nothing so obvious. But his service medals, normally secured in their wooden box, had been arranged on the kitchen table. His silver star positioned centrally, purple hearts forming a perimeter. A clear communication. We know who you are. Marcus photographed the arrangement before restoring the medals to their proper place. The psychological tactic was familiar. Create uncertainty, demonstrate access, establish dominance before confrontation. He'd used similar approaches during intelligence operations overseas. The question was whether this represented threat or recruitment. Cartels often sought former military personnel for their expertise, offering significant financial incentives. The arranged medals could be interpreted as respect rather than intimidation. Either way, it changed nothing. His course was set. The remainder of daylight was spent strengthening his position. Additional surveillance cameras deployed. Early warning systems expanded. Defensive positions reinforced. The cabin itself was potentially compromised, but the surrounding territory, his true advantage, remained secure. By late afternoon, Marcus had established a new command post, a reinforced natural cave half a mile from the cabin, overlooking both his property and the canyon below. From here, he could monitor approaches and control the electronic surveillance network without exposing himself. At dusk, he returned to the convoy's position, approaching from an entirely different angle. The temporary base had expanded. 2 additional vehicles had arrived, commercial panel trucks that could easily blend into normal highway traffic. The personnel count had increased to approximately 20, their behavior suggesting preparation for imminent operation. Most concerning was the communication array they'd established on the eastern ridge, compact but powerful, equipped with directional antennas aimed south. Not just local coordination but long-range command and control capacity. Marcus documented everything, particularly the equipment types and deployment patterns. The pieces formed a clear picture. This wasn't merely preparation for a smuggling run, but infrastructure development for sustained operations. Serpent Canyon was being established as a permanent route. As full darkness settled, activity increased. Vehicles were serviced, weapons cleaned, communication checks performed. Timeline indicators pointed to movement within the next 2,448 hours. Marcus withdrew before midnight, processing what he'd observed. The operation scale exceeded initial estimates. Direct intervention alone would be ineffective against these numbers and preparation levels. He needed to adjust his approach. Force Recon had taught him the power of asymmetric response, identifying critical vulnerabilities and applying precise pressure to achieve disproportionate effects. The Cartel team was professional, well-equipped, and numerous. But they were operating in unfamiliar territory against an opponent who knew every inch of the battlefield. Back at his alternate position, Marcus reviewed the collected intelligence, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities. The Cartel's strength, their numbers and equipment, also created logistical requirements. Water, fuel, communications. Disrupt those, and their advantage diminished. The communication array represented the critical vulnerability. Its position on the eastern ridge provided optimal signal coverage but limited defensive options. Only 2 personnel appeared assigned to security there, likely due to personnel constraints and the position's natural protection, sheer cliffs on 3 sides with a single narrow approach path. By first light, Marcus had formulated his strategy. Not direct confrontation but progressive disruption. Create uncertainty, degrade capabilities, force reaction that would reveal additional information about personnel, equipment, and timeline. Then adapt accordingly. The approach aligned with Force Recon methodology, small unit actions behind enemy lines to disrupt larger operations. He would effectively become a one-man reconnaissance team operating in denied territory. After securing necessary equipment, Marcus moved toward the communications array. The approach required traversing exposed terrain initially, but he'd timed movement with the patrol patterns observed overnight. The Cartel security was professional but predictable, regular intervals, consistent routes. Exploitable. He reached the ridge base undetected, then began the technical climb. Unlike the main approach path, this route required climbing equipment and experience few would possess. Marcus moved steadily upward, each handhold and anchor point selected with precision born from years of similar operations in Afghanistan's mountain terrain. 2 hours later, he achieved visual confirmation of the target. The communication array set 50 meters ahead, attended by 2 armed individuals. Their positioning confirmed his assessment, facing the obvious approach, backs to the supposedly inaccessible cliff face. For 30 minutes, Marcus observed their patterns, communications, equipment. One maintained constant radio contact with the main camp, position updates every 15 minutes. The second appeared responsible for technical aspects, periodically checking connections and signal strength. Rather than direct engagement, Marcus identified the power source, a compact generator positioned behind natural rock formation for noise reduction. His first target. The approach took another 40 minutes, using natural features for concealment. The cartel personnel maintained professional discipline but suffered the universal weakness of static security positions, diminishing alertness over time. At the generator, Marcus worked quickly. Force recon demolition training had included not just destruction but subtle sabotage. He modified the fuel line, a minor alteration that would allow operation for approximately 6 hours before catastrophic failure. Nothing immediately detectable during standard checks. He withdrew the same way he'd approached, leaving no evidence of his presence. By the time he reached his observation post, midday heat had settled over the canyon. Through high-powered optics, activity at the cartel camp appeared normal. No indication his infiltration had been detected. Now came the waiting. Force recon operations often required extended periods between action and effect. Patience was as much a weapon as any rifle. Late afternoon brought the first results. The communication array's generator failed, more dramatically than anticipated judging by the sudden flurry of activity. Figures moved quickly between positions, radios visible as they coordinated response. 2 vehicles departed the main camp toward the ridge, carrying what appeared to be replacement equipment. Marcus had disrupted more than power. He'd created uncertainty. The failure would be investigated, security increased, resources diverted. Each reaction revealed additional information about capabilities, procedures, chain of command. As dusk approached, Marcus returned to his alternate command post, reviewing the day's intelligence. The cartel's response speed indicated solid logistics and contingency planning. Replacement equipment had been deployed within 2 hours, communications restored shortly after. Professional, adaptable, but adaptation required resources. Each response thinned their operational capacity elsewhere. Force recon strategy emphasized compounding effects, multiple small actions that collectively degraded enemy capability far beyond the sum of individual impacts. That night, Marcus targeted their water supply. Not the obvious storage tanks, too easily guarded and quickly replaced, but the filtration system feeding them. The desert water required treatment before use, and the cartel had established a purification station near a natural spring feeding the canyon floor. The approach was more challenging, requiring movement through areas under direct observation. Marcus used darkness and terrain features, advancing centimeters at a time when necessary, remaining motionless during illumination rounds periodically fired by the security team. The filtration system was simple but effective, commercial-grade equipment likely purchased legally through front companies. Marcus introduced a combination of minerals to the intake system, nothing immediately harmful or detectable by taste, but compounds that would cause digestive distress hours after consumption. Not lethal but debilitating, reducing operational effectiveness. By dawn, he'd returned to his observation position, documenting the camp's morning routine. Nothing appeared unusual until approximately 0900, when activity patterns changed noticeably. Personnel movements became less coordinated, more frequent trips to makeshift latrine facilities. By noon, the effectiveness of the compound became evident. At least 6 individuals showed signs of illness, replaced on duty by reserves. Again, the cartel adapted, switching to bottled water reserves. But another resource had been consumed, another layer of capability degraded. More importantly, their attention had shifted increasingly inward, toward internal security and health concerns rather than external threats. That afternoon, Sheriff Harkness's patrol vehicle appeared at Marcus's cabin. Unexpected, potentially problematic. Marcus observed from concealment as Harkness examined the property, clearly looking for signs of occupation. After 30 minutes, the sheriff departed, heading not toward town but in the direction of the canyon's southern entrance. The implication was concerning. Either Harkness was conducting legitimate patrol based on reported suspicious activity, or something more problematic was occurring. Small-town law enforcement near the border faced constant pressure, financial, jurisdictional, sometimes more direct threats. Marcus added this development to his assessment. If Harkness was compromised, actively or passively, it complicated the situation significantly. Local law enforcement cooperation, or at minimum non-interference, had been part of his calculation. As evening approached, Marcus returned to town using indirect routes and extensive counter-surveillance. His target this time wasn't Eleanor's store but Joe Mercer, the local who had spoken with the cartel's advance team. He found Joe behind the town's only bar, halfway through a bottle of cheap whiskey. The conversation was brief, direct. What exactly had he told the strangers? What had they wanted to know? Joe's information confirmed the assessment. The cartel team had asked specific questions about the canyon, access routes, normal patrol patterns. They'd been particularly interested in the former Force Recon Marine living on the northern rim, his habits, his capabilities, his connections to local law enforcement. Most concerning was Joe's final revelation, offered through alcohol-induced candor. They're expecting something big tomorrow night. Said I should stay out of the canyon for a while after. Gave me $500 to keep quiet about everything. Timeline confirmation. Whatever the cartel was planning would begin within 24 hours. Marcus returned to his alternate command post by midnight, mind processing Joe's information. 24 hours. The timeline was accelerating, requiring immediate response. He reviewed his tactical map, analyzing potential cartel approaches and vulnerabilities. The operation would likely involve significantly more personnel and equipment than currently visible in the canyon. The advance team represented merely the infrastructure for what would follow. Force Recon had taught him that adversaries revealed themselves through preparation. The communication array, the security positions, the logistical setup, all indicated a major trafficking operation with considerable resources. Their defensive posture favored the southern canyon entrance with minimal coverage of northern approaches, suggesting the main convoy would arrive from that direction. Marcus began assembling equipment for the next phase. No longer just intelligence gathering, but direct action to disrupt the operation. His options were limited by asymmetric numbers, but Force Recon specialized in exactly this scenario, small teams creating disproportionate effects against numerically superior forces. By first light, he prepared 3 equipment caches at strategic positions throughout the canyon, essential supplies and weapons accessible when required. His experiences in Afghanistan had proven the value of distributed resources when operating in contested territory. The dawn revealed increased activity in the cartel camp. 3 additional vehicles had arrived overnight, heavy-duty transports with reinforced suspensions and covered cargo areas. Approximately 30 personnel were now visible, organized in security teams patrolling expanded perimeters. Professional uniformity in their movements confirmed Mike's intelligence. These weren't ordinary cartel soldiers, but trained operatives, likely with military backgrounds. Most concerning was the arrival of heavier weapons, what appeared to be 3 .50 caliber machine guns mounted on tripods positioned at elevated points overlooking the canyon floor. Their placement created interlocking fields of fire covering the primary route through the passage. Anyone attempting to move through the main canyon without their permission would face devastating firepower. Marcus documented these developments, recognizing the escalation represented by such weaponry. These weren't preparations for smuggling, but for potential combat. The cartel expected resistance, either from rival organizations or law enforcement, and had prepared accordingly. Movement near the northern canyon entrance caught his attention. A security team of 4 men establishing a forward observation post, the first significant presence in this area. Their position would provide early warning of approach from Marcus's direction, potentially compromising his freedom of movement. He shifted his observation point, using natural terrain features for concealment as he approached this new development. The team had selected their position well, elevated, with clear sightlines in multiple directions, reasonable cover from both observation and fire. 2 men maintained watch while 2 others established communication equipment and shelter, a standard rotating security pattern maintaining constant surveillance. Through his scope, Marcus noted details. Their equipment wasn't standard cartel issue but higher quality, tactical vests, what appeared to be ceramic plate carriers, communication headsets rather than handheld radios. One carried a scoped rifle similar to military-designated marksman configurations. Their movements displayed the unconscious coordination of men who had trained together extensively. A decision point. This team represented both threat and opportunity. Their position endangered his operations, but also offered valuable intelligence if approached correctly. Force recon doctrine emphasized capturing enemy personnel when possible. Human intelligence provided insights no observation could match. Marcus formulated his approach, noting patrol patterns and blind spots. The team maintained professional discipline but suffered the universal weakness of static positions, predictability. Their perimeter sweeps occurred at 30-minute intervals, following consistent paths with standardized observation pauses. He would wait for nightfall. Their night vision capabilities were evident. Each operator equipped with what appeared to be PVS-14 monoculars, standard military issue. Good equipment, but effective only when properly employed. Their patrol pattern maintained the same timing after dark, a technical adherence to procedure without adaptive adjustment to conditions. The day passed with Marcus documenting cartel activities throughout the canyon. The operation continued expanding. Additional supplies arrived. Defensive positions were reinforced. Communication checks became more frequent. The signs pointed to imminent execution of whatever mission they had planned. At 14:30, a significant development. 3 SUVs arrived at the main camp, their occupants receiving different treatment than previous personnel. Even from distance, the body language was clear, senior leadership conducting final inspection before launch. One figure in particular commanded attention. Tall, moving with the authoritative confidence of command, receiving deference from even the team leaders. This would be the operation commander, the strategic decision-maker. Marcus focused his observation on this individual, seeking patterns and vulnerabilities. Unlike the security personnel who maintained tactical positioning, the commander moved with less concern for exposure, relying on his protective detail. Operational leaders often represented critical vulnerabilities. Their removal or compromise could disrupt entire mission structures. For 2 hours, the commander toured positions, reviewing preparations with team leaders. His inspection complete, the SUVs departed toward the southern canyon entrance. Timeline indicators now suggested execution within 12 hours, likely under cover of darkness. Dusk brought reduced visibility but increased activity. Additional vehicles arrived, 2 cargo trucks with external features suggesting armored modifications. The convoy was assembling, final preparations underway. Marcus observed 6 personnel checking what appeared to be detention equipment, restraints, temporary holding facilities. The human trafficking element of the operation was preparing to process captives. This detail hardened his resolve. Force recon missions had occasionally involved liberating detained personnel in hostile territory. The operational parameters were different here, but the moral imperative remained constant. Night fell with Marcus approaching the northern observation post. Their patrol patterns had maintained consistency, predictable, exploitable. He timed his approach with their scheduled perimeter sweep, advancing when their attention focused outward, freezing into immobility when their observation turned inward. The first target was the communications equipment, a satellite uplink positioned behind natural rock formation for signal optimization. Marcus approached from the blind side, using specialized tools to access the transmission module. The modification was subtle, not disabling the system, but introducing intermittent signal degradation that would appear as environmental interference rather than sabotage. Equipment compromised, he withdrew to observe position, waiting for the next phase. At 21:30, the expected patrol departure occurred, 2 men maintaining position while 2 conducted perimeter sweep. Marcus tracked their movement, timing his approach to their maximum separation point. The remaining 2 maintained proper positioning, 1 observing northern approaches, 1 covering the southern blind spot. Professional, but insufficient against an opponent who had studied their patterns. Marcus approached from the eastern face, using a technical climbing route no conventional infiltrator would attempt. He reached the position perimeter undetected, waiting silently as the observation team maintained their schedule. When the northern-facing guard shifted position to check communication equipment, the modified system now displaying inconsistent signal strength, Marcus moved. The engagement was swift, silent. Force Recon Close Quarters training emphasized immediate control over lethal force when intelligence gathering was the primary objective. The first guard was subdued with minimal resistance, unconscious before he could trigger alarm. The second reacted more effectively, nearly reaching his sidearm before similar neutralization. Marcus secured both men with their own restraints, applied field medical monitoring to ensure proper vital signs, then prepared for the patrol team's return. Their scheduled communication check would come first, the perfect opportunity. When the radio crackled with the expected check-in, Marcus provided the response, a simple acknowledgement using observed protocol. His mimicry of the team leader's speech pattern was sufficient for routine communication, buying critical minutes before suspicion would arise. The returning patrol team separated at the final approach, 1 covering the western edge, 1 taking direct path. Standard procedure, but predictable. Marcus engaged the isolated patrol member first, employing the same silent techniques. The final team member recognized something wrong seconds too late, awareness dawning just before unconsciousness. With all 4 secured and monitored, Marcus began intelligence collection. Their equipment confirmed earlier assessment. High-quality tactical gear, military-grade weapons, encrypted communications. Identification revealed more concerning details. 2 carried credentials identifying them as former Mexican Special Forces, 1 with additional certifications in surveillance technology. The team leader's documentation was more troubling. U.S. military contractor ID dating 3 years prior. The human element of the cartel operation was more dangerous than initially assessed. Not just trained personnel, but individuals with specific expertise in counterinsurgency operations, the exact skill set designed to detect and eliminate threats like Marcus. Equipment secured, Marcus began questioning the team leader, now conscious but restrained. The interrogation techniques were familiar, applied psychological pressure rather than physical force, leveraging distraction and disorientation while building rapport through shared military experience. The information emerged gradually, pieces forming a clearer operational picture. The cartel was indeed establishing Serpent Canyon as a premier trafficking route, but tonight's operation held greater significance. A high-value transfer, both narcotics and human captives, intended to demonstrate route viability to cartel leadership. How many personnel total? Marcus asked, maintaining professional detachment. 52 in Canyon currently, the team leader responded, military precision evident in his answer. Another 40 with the primary convoy. Timeline. A hesitation, then, main convoy enters southern approach at 0200. Full operation scheduled to transit Canyon by 0400. Who's running it? Another pause, longer. Reynosa. Colonel Miguel Reynosa. The name triggered immediate recognition. Colonel Reynosa, former Mexican Special Forces commander who had disappeared 3 years prior, reportedly recruited by cartel interests. His reputation within military circles was formidable, tactical brilliance coupled with ruthless efficiency. His presence explained the operation's sophisticated structure and personnel quality. "What's your extract plan?" Marcus asked, referring to their planned departure route. Northern exit to Highway 17. Convoy splits there, product west, personnel east. The information aligned with observed preparations. Highway 17 provided direct access to metropolitan distribution centers, ideal for both narcotics movement and human trafficking integration into urban environments. Marcus continued the interrogation for another 30 minutes, extracting operational details, contingency plans, communication protocols. The team leader's responses became increasingly precise as the interrogation technique established controlled cooperation. Final question: is Sheriff Harkness involved? The response was immediate, unguarded, passive cooperation. Patrol schedules adjusted, response times delayed if necessary. No direct involvement. The confirmation simplified certain tactical considerations while complicating others. Local law enforcement wouldn't interfere, but neither would they provide assistance if the situation deteriorated. With intelligence collection complete, Marcus sedated all 4 team members, ensuring they would remain unconscious but medically stable for at least 8 hours. He secured them in a natural cave formation unlikely to be discovered during standard search patterns, then gathered critical equipment. The team's absence would be noted at their next scheduled check-in, approximately 40 minutes from now. The compromised communication equipment would buy additional time as response teams troubleshot technical issues before suspecting human interference. Marcus returned to his observation post, processing new intelligence against tactical requirements. The operation had grown beyond initial assessment. Nearly 100 cartel personnel, military-grade equipment, leadership with counterinsurgency expertise. Direct confrontation would be suicidal. Force recon doctrine emphasized asymmetric response in exactly these scenarios. When conventional tactics fail, target critical vulnerabilities with precision. The convoy represented the operation's center of gravity. Without successful transit, the entire mission failed. The colonel's presence indicated the strategic importance of this demonstration. Marcus began formulating his countermeasure strategy. The canyon offered natural choke points where concentrated force could effectively engage numerically superior opponents. The approach needed careful planning, disrupt without revealing position, create cascading effects that would force mission abort without direct engagement against their full strength. At exactly 23:10, the Northern Observation Post missed its scheduled check-in. Response was immediate. A 6-man team dispatched from main camp to investigate. Marcus tracked their movement, noting professional search patterns as they discovered the position abandoned with equipment intact. Their reaction confirmed military training, immediate perimeter establishment, methodical search initiation, controlled communication. The search team leader reported findings to main camp, triggering visible command response. Personnel shifted to heightened security posture, patrol patterns intensified, additional observation posts established. The operational timeline, however, appeared unchanged, the primary mission maintaining priority despite security compromise. Marcus used the distraction to reposition, moving to prepared location overlooking the canyon's narrowest section, a natural bottleneck where sheer walls reduced passage width to approximately 20 meters. Any convoy would be forced to move through single file, vehicles compressed without lateral maneuvering space. The position offered multiple advantages: elevated firing angle, natural concealment, reasonable withdrawal routes. Most importantly, it allowed engagement of the convoy's lead and rear vehicles simultaneously, standard ambush technique to fix a target in kill zone without escape option. As midnight approached, Marcus made final preparations. The M40A6 was positioned for precision fire against vehicle-mounted weapons or command personnel. The M4 carbine with 40mm grenade launcher attachment provided area effect capability. Claymore mines, originally acquired for perimeter defense, had been repositioned to cover likely response routes. Equipment check complete, Marcus conducted final mental review of the operation plan. Force recon training emphasized thorough preparation followed by decisive action. The ambush would target vehicle mobility first. Disabled lead and rear transport would trap the convoy in the bottleneck. Secondary targets would be crew-served weapons and command elements, degrading response capability. The objective was mission disruption rather than personnel elimination. Force the cartel to abort the demonstration without engaging their full strength. He checked his watch, 0115. The convoy would enter the Southern Canyon approach in approximately 45 minutes based on the captured team leader's timeline. Marcus settled into position, controlling his breathing, entering the focused mental state force recon operators called combat clarity, heightened awareness without emotional interference. The night deepened around him, canyon walls black against star-filled sky. Memories surfaced of similar operations in Afghanistan, mountain ambushes against Taliban supply convoys, small teams creating disproportionate effects against superior numbers. His foreman unit had once disabled a 14-vehicle convoy, using similar techniques, targeting critical vulnerabilities rather than attempting direct force confrontation. Staff Sergeant Collins' voice echoed in memory. Patience sets the ambush, but commitment springs it. Once engaged, no hesitation. At 0143, Marcus detected convoy movement at the southern entrance. Vehicle lights appeared, dim for tactical advance rather than completely darkened. Through night vision, the formation became visible, 2 lead security vehicles followed by cargo transports, rear security following. Personnel deployed in standard protective configuration, walking alongside vehicles at critical points. The convoy advanced slowly, maintaining tactical spacing while navigating the canyon's uneven terrain. Marcus counted vehicles, for security, 6 cargo, 14 total including command and support transport. Personnel numbers matched intelligence, approximately 40 with the convoy itself, integrating with the 50-plus already established in the canyon. Through his scope, Marcus identified the command vehicle, 3rd from front, distinctive antenna configuration and personnel positioning. The convoy commander would be there, likely Colonel Reynosa himself, based on operational importance. The formation continued advancing, moving deeper into the canyon. Marcus remained motionless, controlling breathing, waiting for optimal positioning. Force recon ambush doctrine emphasized patience, allowing the target to fully commit to the kill zone before initiation. At 0212, the convoy approached the bottleneck. Lead vehicles slowed, security personnel advancing to clear the narrowed passage before transport continued. Standard procedure, professionally executed. The formation compressed naturally due to terrain constraints, reducing spacing between vehicles, creating both vulnerability and concentrated defensive capability. The lead security vehicle entered the bottleneck, followed closely by the second. The command vehicle approached the entrance, maintaining tactical positioning. Optimal ambush conditions developing. Marcus observed final convoy positioning through his scope, identifying priority targets. The lead vehicle-mounted .50 caliber machine gun represented immediate threat capability. The command vehicle contained operational leadership. The rear security vehicle controlled retreat options. All 3 needed to be disabled nearly simultaneously for maximum effectiveness. As the command vehicle entered the bottleneck, Marcus initiated the engagement. The first shot targeted the lead vehicle's engine block, precision fire to disable mobility without catastrophic destruction. The round penetrated as designed, vehicle lurching to stop as systems failed. Immediate response from security teams, disciplined, returning fire toward suspected origin point while establishing defensive positions. Marcus had anticipated this reaction, already repositioning to secondary firing location prepared earlier. The second shot targeted the rear security vehicle with identical effect, mobility disabled, blocking withdrawal option. The convoy was now fixed in position, trapped between disabled vehicles in the narrow passage. Crew-served weapons oriented toward Marcus's initial firing position, delivering sustained suppressive fire. The response confirmed professional training, immediate action without panic, coordinated rather than individual reaction. From secondary position, Marcus targeted the command vehicle communication array, precision shot disabling antenna systems without endangering personnel. The effect was immediate, visible disruption in command coordination as primary communication capability degraded. The cartel response intensified, multiple teams engaging suspected firing positions with coordinated suppressive fire. Marcus withdrew further, moving to tertiary location overlooking the bottleneck from different angle. Force recon evasion techniques emphasized continuous movement. Never remain in any position long enough for adversaries to fix location. From new position, Marcus employed the M4's grenade launcher, 40mm smoke rounds landing precisely between convoy vehicles. The non-lethal approach created immediate tactical confusion, obscuring vision within the bottleneck while maintaining convoy containment. He observed the command response through his scope. Despite communication disruption, leadership maintained control, security teams establishing perimeter, counter-snipers moving to elevated positions, coordinated search patterns developing. Colonel Reynos's influence was evident in their disciplined reaction to ambush. The convoy commander emerged from the central vehicle, directing response personally despite exposure risk. Through magnification, Marcus confirmed identity. Colonel Reynosa, surveillance photos matching the commanding figure now orchestrating counter-ambush operations. Reynosa's tactical assessment was immediate and professional. Rather than attempting to clear disabled vehicles, which would require time and maintain vulnerability, he ordered cargo transferred to functioning transports. Convoy reconfiguration under fire, adapting to ambush conditions rather than withdrawing. The response demonstrated why Reynos's reputation was formidable. Under direct threat, he maintained operational focus on mission completion rather than security distraction. The convoy was consolidating, preparing to continue despite disruption. Marcus adjusted his approach accordingly. Direct fire against personnel would escalate the engagement beyond sustainable parameters. He was vastly outnumbered, with the cartel force demonstrating professional combat capability. Instead, he employed psychological operation techniques from force recon training. Moving to previously prepared position, Marcus activated remote detonation system. The controlled charges, non-lethal breaching explosives positioned throughout the canyon during earlier preparation, detonated in sequence. The effect was precisely calculated. Minimal actual damage but maximum psychological impact, creating impression of larger attacking force. The detonations triggered secondary response from the cartel force. Security teams divided attention between multiple apparent threats, command structure struggling to assess situation accurately through degraded communications and limited visibility. Marcus reinforced the psychological operation with precise sniper fire, targeting vehicle tires, weapon mounting systems, and environmental objects near personnel positions. The approach created impression of multiple shooters without directly engaging cartel personnel. The cumulative effect achieved intended purpose. The convoy commander could be observed reassessing operational parameters as disruption continued. Force recon ambush doctrine emphasized creating untenable conditions rather than inflicting casualties. Make the mission impossible to complete rather than attempting to defeat the enemy force directly. After approximately 20 minutes of sustained disruption, the convoy initiated withdrawal procedures. Cargo was hastily returned to functional vehicles. Defensive positions collapsed inward, personnel regrouping around transport assets. Colonel Reynosa could be observed issuing direct commands, gestures indicating southern direction, retreat rather than advance. The convoy began extracting, abandoning disabled vehicles while maintaining defensive coverage. Their withdrawal was professional, alternating coverage, maintaining suppressive fire against suspected positions, recovering all personnel despite difficult conditions. Marcus maintained pressure during extraction, employing precisely timed fire to reinforce withdrawal decision without creating casualties that might trigger more aggressive response. The psychology was delicate, sufficient threat to ensure retreat without provocation that would demand escalated engagement. By 03:15, the convoy had fully withdrawn from the bottleneck, reversing course towards Southern Canyon entrance. Marcus observed their continued retreat through his scope, noting Reynosa's ongoing command despite operational failure. The colonel's final action confirmed professional assessment. He deployed rear security team to maintain coverage during withdrawal rather than committing full force to retreat. The engagement had achieved primary objective, convoy disruption without direct confrontation against superior numbers. The cartel operation was compromised, demonstration unsuccessful, new route viability questioned. All accomplished without creating blood debt that would demand cartel response regardless of operational considerations. As vehicle lights disappeared towards Southern Canyon entrance, Marcus conducted immediate area assessment. The bottleneck contained 3 disabled vehicles, abandoned equipment, evidence of hasty withdrawal. The psychological operation had created impression of coordinated military response rather than single operator intervention, a misperception that would complicate cartel counteroperations. He withdrew to observation post overlooking the main cartel camp, analyzing their response to convoy failure. Activity indicated accelerated departure preparation, equipment being dismantled, supplies loaded, security positions collapsed. The operational abort appeared to include full withdrawal from Serpent Canyon rather than mission reschedule. By dawn, the cartel presence had reduced significantly. Approximately 20 personnel remained, primarily engaged in equipment recovery and security withdrawal. The sophisticated communication array had been dismantled, heavy weapons removed, infrastructure disassembled. The message was clear. The canyon route had been compromised beyond immediate recovery. Marcus maintained observation through early morning, documenting continued withdrawal. Force recon after-action protocols emphasized thorough intelligence collection following operational engagement. Understanding enemy response patterns provided critical data for future operations. The remaining cartel personnel departed by 0900, leaving minimal evidence of their presence. Their site discipline was professional, no documentation abandoned, identifying materials removed, technical equipment completely extracted. Only environmental indicators and disabled vehicles remained as evidence of their operation. As morning heat intensified, Marcus finally withdrew from his position, body feeling the effects of sustained high-intensity operation without rest. Force recon conditioning had prepared him for exactly these scenarios, but at 52, recovery took longer than during active service years. He returned to his alternate command post, securing equipment before conducting communication check. Mike Tanner had maintained scheduled monitoring of emergency frequencies despite absence of direct communication during operation. Sierra Actual, radio check, Marcus transmitted, using their old team designation from Force Recon days. The response was immediate. Sierra Actual, Lima copies. Status: package returned to sender. Marcus replied, the coded confirmation of operation success. Understood. Area assessment: declining interest in real estate. Market cooling rapidly. The exchange confirmed operational success without compromising operational security. Mike would understand the canyon route had been denied to cartel use, at least temporarily. Whether permanent remained to be determined, cartel resources and persistence were formidable, particularly with leadership like Colonel Reynosa involved. Marcus ended transmission and prepared for recovery operations. The 4 cartel personnel secured earlier would require handling, their intelligence value exhausted, but their treatment remaining within operational parameters. Force recon training emphasized proper detainee procedures regardless of enemy status. The morning sun illuminated Serpent Canyon, empty now of cartel presence, but forever changed by their intrusion. The battle had been won through asymmetric approach, precision over mass, intelligence over firepower, psychological operation over direct engagement. Force recon methodology applied to Homeland Defense. Staff Sergeant Collins would have approved. Marcus transported the 4 captured cartel operatives to a predetermined location 2 miles from his property where Border Patrol could recover them without compromising his position. A coded message to Mike would ensure proper handling. The men secured but alive, available for official interrogation and processing. Force recon ethics maintained even without oversight. By noon, Marcus had returned to his cabin, conducting thorough security sweep before re-establishing primary residence. The cartel's hasty withdrawal suggested immediate threat had diminished, but experience cautioned against premature relaxation. Professional opponents like Colonel Reynosa didn't abandon operational objectives easily, particularly when personal reputation became involved. Marcus maintained heightened surveillance throughout the afternoon, monitoring communication frequencies and approach routes for indicators of cartel return. Nothing materialized. The canyon remained quiet, abandoned vehicles at the bottleneck undisturbed. The withdrawal appeared complete, at least temporarily. As evening approached, fatigue began affecting performance. Combat operations without proper rest degraded effectiveness exponentially after 24 hours. Marcus implemented sleep management protocol from Force Recon training, 90-minute combat rest cycles to restore minimal functionality without compromising security. He awoke at dusk, instantly alert despite abbreviated rest. A quick systems check revealed no security breach. Surveillance network reporting normal conditions throughout the canyon. Local radio communications indicated standard patterns. Sheriff Harkness conducting routine patrol announcements. No unusual activity reported. After preparing field rations, habits from deployment, maintaining operational efficiency, Marcus reviewed collected intelligence. The cartel operation represented significant resource commitment, abandoned under relatively light pressure. Such retreat seemed inconsistent with Colonel Reynosa's reputation for tactical persistence. The apparent victory felt incomplete, elements unresolved. The satellite phone rang, Mike's secure line. Package delivered, Mike reported, confirming Border Patrol had recovered the detainees. Interesting contents. Command element is very interested in unexpected delivery. Current assessment? Marcus asked. Area appears clear. Surveillance shows withdrawal continuing southward. No indication of return preparation. A pause, then. Something feels wrong, Marcus. This was too easy. The observation aligned with Marcus's own unease. Professional assessment or instinct? Both. These guys don't abandon logistics infrastructure this valuable without serious cause. Your disruption was effective but not catastrophic. They should have reset, tried again. The analysis resonated with Marcus's military experience. Force recon operations in hostile territory had revealed consistent patterns in adversary response. Determined opponents accepted tactical setbacks while maintaining strategic objectives. Complete withdrawal typically indicated either mission abandonment or strategic redeployment. Alternative hypothesis. Marcus prompted. 2 possibilities, Mike replied, the methodical reasoning of their shared military background evident. 1. We're missing something about operational timeline. Maybe this wasn't the main effort, but preparation for something larger. And 2. They're changing approach, not objective. Reynosa spent 3 years fighting insurgents before joining Cartel. He knows tactical flexibility, adapting when direct approach fails. The assessment aligned with Marcus's understanding of the colonel's background. Mexican Special Forces had received extensive counterinsurgency training, including from U.S. advisors. Reynosa would recognize when to change methods rather than objectives. Keep monitoring, Marcus instructed. I'll maintain position and surveillance. After ending the call, Marcus conducted comprehensive review of defensive preparations. If the cartel returned with modified approach, previous countermeasures might prove insufficient. Force recon survival depended on continuous adaptation, never relying on single defensive concept when facing determined adversary. Full darkness brought renewed vigilance. Night operations offered advantages to trained personnel. Reduced visibility created opportunities for infiltration that daylight denied. Marcus activated enhanced surveillance systems, thermal detection extending normal capability. At 2213, the first anomaly appeared. Thermal signature detected at extreme southern canyon entrance, single figure moving with tactical discipline, avoiding obvious routes. The movement pattern indicated professional training, indirect approach, utilizing terrain features for concealment, consistent sensory pauses to detect potential observation. Marcus tracked the figure through surveillance system, noting approach vector and technique. Not standard cartel methods, this represented specialized infiltration training. The operator moved alone, carrying minimal equipment based on thermal profile. Reconnaissance element rather than direct action team. For 20 minutes, Marcus observed the infiltrators' progress through the canyon. The approach was methodical, professional, terrain features utilized effectively, movement time to correspond with natural sound patterns, position selection demonstrating tactical awareness. This was no ordinary cartel soldier, but specialized operator with advanced training. The figure advanced approximately 2 miles into the canyon before establishing observation position overlooking the main passage. Equipment deployment suggested surveillance rather than attack preparation. Compact system established with clear field of view toward northern approaches. Marcus considered response options. The infiltrator represented intelligence gathering capability but limited direct threat. Neutralization was possible, but might trigger escalated response if reporting schedule was interrupted. Observation offered greater insight into cartel intentions, determined purpose before taking action. The decision aligned with force recon methodology. Intelligence collection prioritized over premature engagement when operational parameters permitted. Marcus maintained surveillance of the infiltrator, documenting equipment, procedures, communication patterns. At 2340, second thermal signature appeared at southern entrance. Similar movement characteristics, professional infiltration technique, disciplined approach, minimal equipment profile. The second operator advanced along western canyon wall, establishing separate observation position approximately half-mile from first infiltrator. By midnight, 5 separate operators had infiltrated the canyon, establishing dispersed observation network with overlapping fields of view. Their positioning created comprehensive surveillance coverage of the entire passage, particularly focused on the bottleneck where previous ambush had occurred. The pattern became clear, reconnaissance team conducting detailed terrain analysis and security assessment. Not immediate attack preparation, but methodical intelligence gathering for future operation. Colonel Reynosa was applying proper military procedure, thorough reconnaissance before commitment of main force. Marcus maintained position, observing the observers. Their equipment and procedures revealed additional details, night vision capability, compact communication systems with probable encryption, disciplined reporting schedule. These weren't conventional cartel soldiers, but specialized reconnaissance unit, likely drawn from Reynosa's former military connections. The infiltration team maintained position throughout night, conducting comprehensive documentation of canyon terrain, security approaches, and defensive options. Their thoroughness confirmed serious intention. This wasn't cursory assessment, but detailed preparation for significant operation. At first light, the infiltrators began coordinated withdrawal, maintaining tactical discipline throughout extraction. Their mission appeared complete. Detailed reconnaissance conducted without detection, intelligence gathered for operational planning. Standard military procedure executed with professional competence. Marcus tracked their extraction, noting continued tactical movement even during withdrawal. No carelessness, no shortcuts despite mission completion. Colonel Reynosa had deployed serious professionals for this reconnaissance, indication of the operation's importance and his personal investment in success. After confirming complete extraction, Marcus conducted communication check with Mike, reporting infiltration details and assessment. The implications were significant. The cartel hadn't abandoned Serpent Canyon, but was preparing more sophisticated approach based on lessons from initial failure. Timeline estimate? Mike asked after absorbing the information. Professional reconnaissance team operating independently, Marcus analyzed. Detailed reporting and planning would require minimum 48 hours before operational implementation, likely 7,296 hours before main effort. Agreed. This matches intelligence from other sources. They're planning something significant, multiple routes simultaneously, coordinated timing. Your canyon appears to remain primary effort based on resource commitment. The broader perspective reinforced Marcus's assessment. Serpent Canyon represented strategic priority despite tactical setback. Colonel Reynosa's reputation suggested he wouldn't abandon valuable route without exhausting all operational options. Recommendation? Mike prompted. Continue observation, maintain defensive preparation, Marcus replied. They've shown their reconnaissance capability. Next phase will reveal operational approach. Border Patrol positioning assets based on available intelligence, but resource limitations remain significant. Official support will be minimal at best. The information wasn't surprising but confirmed operational reality. Marcus would face whatever came largely alone, as he had during the initial engagement. Force Recon independence was familiar territory. After ending communication, Marcus conducted thorough review of the infiltrators' observation positions, identifying what they had documented and likely conclusions. Their professional assessment would recognize the bottleneck vulnerability, the elevated firing positions, the limited approach options. Standard military analysis would recommend alternative method rather than force-in-force engagement against prepared defense. What would Colonel Reynosa plan based on that reconnaissance? Force Recon training emphasized thinking like the adversary, anticipating response by understanding their capabilities, limitations, and psychology. The colonel's military background provided useful framework for prediction. 3 likely approaches emerged from analysis: technological offset, numerical superiority, or operational deception. Each presented different threat profile and required specific countermeasure preparation. Marcus began methodical planning for all 3 possibilities, preparing layered response options. The day passed without further cartel activity, the canyon resuming desert stillness disrupted only by occasional wildlife movement. Marcus used the time for equipment maintenance, resource distribution, and recovery. Force Recon operations emphasized sustainability, managing physical resources and human endurance equally. By late afternoon, Marcus had established enhanced surveillance at key positions, redistributed defensive equipment, and prepared multiple response options. Force Recon planning emphasized flexibility, predetermined responses to anticipated scenarios, while maintaining adaptation capability for unexpected developments. As darkness fell, Marcus detected communication signature on encrypted frequency, brief transmission from Southern Canyon entrance. The pattern matched military communication protocol, status check rather than conversation, likely reconnaissance element reporting position. Within 30 minutes, thermal signatures appeared at the southern entrance. Not infiltration team, but larger element. Approximately 20 personnel moving with tactical formation through the canyon. Their approach differed from previous convoy. No vehicles, equipment distributed among personnel, movement utilizing terrain features for concealment rather than direct route. Marcus tracked their advance, noting professional discipline in their movement. Coordinated fire teams maintaining tactical spacing, security elements properly positioned, command structure evident in formation. These were trained combatants executing rehearsed operation, not cartel enforcers improvising approach. Their equipment confirmed assessment, military-grade night vision, standardized weapons with suppression devices, communication systems with apparent encryption capability. Colonel Reynosa had deployed his elite element, operators with formal military training and equipment to match. Marcus observed their movement toward the bottleneck, anticipating defensive positioning similar to convoy approach. Instead, the formation divided, elements establishing elevated positions covering multiple approaches, others continuing through passage with modified security posture. Not convoy protection, but assault preparation, establishing fire support for following element. The tactical approach revealed Colonel Reynosa's revised strategy. Rather than attempting passage with vulnerable convoy, he was establishing control of the entire terrain, securing the canyon before transportation assets entered. Military doctrine applied to cartel operation. By midnight, the advance force had established comprehensive security coverage throughout the southern half of the canyon. Observation posts overlooked key terrain, crew-served weapons positioned for interlocking fields of fire, communication network established with apparent redundancy. Professional preparation for major operation. The development confirmed Marcus's earlier assessment. Reconnaissance had identified defensive vulnerabilities, operational plan modified accordingly. Colonel Reynosa was applying conventional military solution, establish fire superiority before mission execution. At 0130, second element entered canyon, approximately 30 additional personnel with different equipment configuration. Where the first group carried primarily tactical gear, this element transported specialized equipment, climbing systems, electronic countermeasures, what appeared to be explosive breaching charges. Technical specialists rather than security force. Marcus documented their integration with established security elements, noting coordination and specialized deployment. The technical teams began establishing systems throughout secured area, electronic surveillance equipment, counter-sniper detection systems, communication jammers. Not just controlling terrain, but establishing technological dominance. The operation scale exceeded initial assessment. Colonel Reynosa had committed significant resources to establish comprehensive control of Serpent Canyon, likely 50 personnel already deployed with more apparently planned based on preparation level. The approach demonstrated serious commitment to establishing the route regardless of resistance. Force recon doctrine emphasized realistic threat assessment. Never underestimate adversary capability or determination. The cartel operation had evolved from smuggling attempt to military-style terrain seizure. The paradigm shift required corresponding adaptation in response. At 0230, Marcus detected new development. Small team separating from main element, moving northward along eastern canyon wall. Their movement pattern differed from security deployment, direct approach toward his property location rather than terrain control. For operators moving with clear intent, equipment profile suggesting specialized mission. The team's approach vector and formation indicated specific targeting, not random patrol, but directed action toward known objective. Marcus's position had been compromised, his cabin identified as opposing force location. Intelligence leak or technical detection, the result remained the same, direct threat approaching his primary position. Force recon training emphasized immediate adaptation to changing threat profile. Marcus activated contingency plan for compromised position, essential equipment already relocated to alternate sites, defensive preparations established for exactly this scenario. His cabin represented known vulnerability, fixed position easily targeted once identified. The approach team maintained professional discipline throughout movement, utilizing terrain features effectively while maintaining tactical formation. Their equipment included what appeared to be specialized breaching tools and heavier weapons than standard personnel, prepared for fortified position assault. Marcus withdrew from observation post overlooking the canyon, implementing evasion protocol established during initial planning. Force recon survival in denied territory depended on mobility. Fixed defense against superior numbers inevitably failed without external support. His strategy required maintaining operation capability rather than defending specific position. The foreman team reached his cabin perimeter at approximately 0310, establishing standard assault positioning before initiating breach. Their technique confirmed professional training, textbook approach to structure clearing with minimal exposed movement and coordinated entry preparation. From concealed position 200 meters distant, Marcus observed their operation through thermal optics. The team breached primary entrance with controlled explosion, immediately followed by staggered entry with proper security coverage. The assault execution demonstrated formal training, likely military or specialized law enforcement background rather than cartel enforcement. For 12 minutes, the team conducted thorough search of the property, moving with tactical discipline throughout. Their equipment included what appeared to be specialized detection technology, scanning walls and floors methodically before departure. The search pattern indicated specific objective rather than random destruction, intelligence gathering rather than simple elimination. The team departed after completing search, returning toward main canyon force with apparent communication occurring throughout movement. Their mission complete, objective apparently unfulfilled based on continued search pattern during withdrawal. Marcus had successfully executed evasion protocol before compromise. The development confirmed operational escalation. Colonel Reynosa had identified him specifically as opposing force, dedicating specialized team to neutralization attempt. The personal targeting represented significant threat increase, no longer general security operation but specific counterinsurgent approach. By 0400, the canyon contained approximately 80 cartel personnel based on thermal signature count and deployment pattern. Their disposition created comprehensive security coverage throughout southern half, with technical surveillance extending further north. The operation scale represented major resource commitment, far beyond standard smuggling security. Dawn revealed full deployment extent. The cartel force had established what effectively constituted military-style forward operating base at the canyon widening where their camp had previously been located. Equipment included vehicle maintenance facilities, field medical station, command and control center with satellite communication capability. Logistical preparation for sustained operation rather than transient passage. Most concerning development appeared at southern entrance. The arrival of 3 armored vehicles, unlike previous transports. Their configuration resembled improvised light armored vehicles, civilian trucks modified with steel plating, weapons mounts, and reinforced chassis. Cartel technical development had created primitive but effective assault vehicles designed for contested territory operation. The operational evolution was clear. Colonel Reynosa had abandoned smuggling convoy concept in favor of terrain seizure and control, establishing dominated corridor through Serpent Canyon that could support ongoing trafficking without repeated security deployment. The approach demonstrated strategic thinking beyond typical cartel operation. Marcus conducted comprehensive reassessment based on new intelligence. Force recon planning emphasized objective reality over desired outcome. The situation had evolved beyond single-operator interdiction capability. The cartel force represented conventional military threat, requiring corresponding response. He established communication with Mike, transmitting surveillance imagery and assessment. The information produced immediate reaction. This exceeds all intelligence estimates. Mike responded after reviewing data. They've deployed what amounts to mechanized infantry company with support elements. Reynosa is establishing permanence force, not transit security. Assessment matches observation, Marcus confirmed. Capability exceeds individual interdiction parameters. Recommendation. The question represented significant decision point. Force recon operators trained for independent action, but doctrine acknowledged operational limitations. Some situations required official response rather than individual initiative. Stand by. Mike replied. Clear indication he was consulting higher authority. For 20 minutes, Marcus maintained observation of cartel deployment while awaiting response. The operation continued expanding, additional personnel arriving, equipment being distributed, defensive positions reinforced. Colonel Reynosa was establishing what effectively constituted military base in American territory. Mike's response finally came, tone indicating official channel communication rather than informal exchange. Border Patrol Special Response Team activated, ETA 3 hours minimum. FBI Tactical Alert issued, assets deploying. Request continued surveillance without engagement pending official response. The message confirmed operational paradigm shift, transition from individual interdiction to formal law enforcement response. Marcus acknowledged instruction while maintaining observation position. Force recon discipline included knowing when to integrate with larger operational structure. Throughout morning, cartel deployment continued expanding. The armored vehicles established tactical positions covering canyon approaches. Crew-served weapons created interlocking fields of fire. Technical surveillance systems extended coverage throughout the passage. Colonel Reynosa had transformed smuggling operation into territory seizure, establishing controlled corridor through sovereign territory. At 11:30, significant development occurred at the southern entrance. 3 SUVs arrived with distinctive security configuration, lead and follow vehicles with center transport protected. The formation indicated VIP movement, high-value personnel arrival requiring enhanced protection. Through magnified optics, Marcus observed central figure emerging from protected vehicle. Colonel Reynosa himself, no longer commanding remotely but personally directing operation. The colonel's presence confirmed mission importance, direct involvement indicating strategic priority beyond typical cartel operation. Marcus documented Reynosa's movement throughout the forward operating base, noting interactions and command structure. The colonel's bearing reflected military background, confident direction, personnel responding with discipline beyond cartel norm. This was professional military commander leading operation on foreign soil. Most concerning observation came during Reynosa's inspection of northern security positions. His gestures and apparent instructions indicated expanded operation parameters, security perimeter extending beyond canyon itself towards surrounding community. The implications were significant, not just corridor control, but potential territory dominance affecting civilian population. At 1300, Marcus detected new communications pattern, increased transmission activity with apparent coordination components. The cartel force began movement evolution, personnel redistributing with clear tactical purpose. 3 distinct elements formed: security maintenance at established base, assault element centered on armored vehicles, specialized team with technical equipment. Marcus tracked formation development, recognizing standard military operation structure. The assault element positioned for northern movement, 12 personnel with heavier weapons in the 3 armored vehicles. The specialized team established supporting position with what appeared to be electronic warfare equipment and longer-range weapons. Base security maintained defensive posture around command position. The tactical deployment indicated imminent operation commencement, positioning complete, personnel briefed, equipment distributed. Colonel Reynosa had established conditions for expanded control beyond initial canyon seizure. At 1340, Marcus transmitted updated intelligence to official channels, emphasizing apparent operation commencement and civilian risk implications. The response confirmed accelerated official timeline. Border Patrol Tactical Team ETA revised to 1 hour. FBI assets coordinating for joint response. Air support requested, but confirmation pending. The situation had evolved beyond individual interdiction capability, but immediate threat to civilian population created interim responsibility. Force recon ethics emphasized protection of non-combatants regardless of operational parameters. Marcus analyzed available options within revised constraints. Direct engagement against superior force remained tactically unsound, but delaying action could protect civilian interests pending official response. Force recon doctrine included disruption operations specifically designed to delay adversary advancement without decisive engagement. As the cartel assault element began movement toward Northern Canyon exit, clear vector toward Kingsnake community, Marcus implemented disruption protocol. The approach utilized prepositioned equipment established during earlier preparation phase, designed specifically for delaying action rather than direct confrontation. The first element activated at 1355, remote triggered signal jammers positioned along Northern Passage. The effect was immediate and visible, cartel communication systems experiencing degraded function, coordination compromised between advancing elements. Not catastrophic disruption, but operational friction introducing delay. The assault element paused, implementing communication contingency procedures, expected response from professionally led force. Their adaptation demonstrated training quality but required 13 minutes to establish alternative communication method, valuable delay without direct engagement. Marcus proceeded to second disruption phase, remotely activated obstacles along primary movement route. Not lethal devices, but mobility challenges, terrain modification, and route denial, implementing classic delay tactics from Force Recon playbook. The placement required attacking force to either clear obstacles or identify alternative approach, either option consuming operational time. The cartel force selected route clearance, professional decision, maintaining tactical cohesion rather than dividing force. The process required specialized equipment and approximately 20 minutes. Additional delay achieved without direct confrontation. Throughout disruption operation, Marcus maintained continuous intelligence transmission to responding official elements. Real-time updates on cartel position, equipment, and apparent intention provided critical operational information for developing response. Force recon integration with conventional forces often included this forward observer function. At 1440, the cartel assault element resumed northern movement, having overcome initial disruption measures. Their adjusted formation demonstrated adaptation. Wider security perimeter, electronic countermeasures active, movement utilizing terrain features for maximum protection. Colonel Reynosa's professional influence evident in tactical evolution. Marcus implemented final disruption phase, simulated opposing force presentation through distributed sound devices and thermal decoys. The technique created impression of defensive deployment without actual personnel exposure. Psychological operation designed to force cautious advance rather than rapid movement. The approach achieved intended effect. The cartel assault element transitioned to deliberate movement, systematic security clearance of suspected positions, careful terrain analysis before advancement, comprehensive counterambush procedures. Their professional response to perceived threat created significant operational delay without requiring direct engagement. By 1510, official response elements appeared at Northern Canyon entrance. Border Patrol tactical team establishing containment position with FBI integration. The force composition indicated serious response. Approximately 30 specialized personnel with appropriate equipment and apparent tactical coordination. Marcus established secure communication with official element, providing position confirmation and ongoing intelligence. The transmission received immediate acknowledgement and integration request, his unique positioning and observational capability representing valuable operational asset. The official response implemented standard containment protocol, established security perimeter, deployed specialized observation capability, initiated communications equipment to address civilian population. Professional approach appropriately scaled to threat assessment. At 1545, fixed-wing aircraft appeared overhead, Border Patrol air support establishing observation pattern above the canyon. The platform likely contained advanced surveillance equipment and communication relay capability, significantly enhancing official response effectiveness. The combined effect of official deployment created immediate reaction within cartel force. The assault element halted forward movement, establishing defensive position while apparently awaiting instruction. Base operations initiated what appeared to be equipment consolidation, preparing for potential withdrawal based on changed operational conditions. Marcus maintained observation position, providing continuous intelligence to official response elements. The integrated approach demonstrated optimal response to asymmetric threat. Individual capability combined with official authority, creating comprehensive security solution. At 1620, Colonel Reynosa appeared to make significant operational decision. The assault element initiated withdrawal procedure, returning toward base position with tactical discipline maintained throughout movement. The forward operating base began equipment consolidation accelerating, priority items secured while non-essential elements abandoned. The cartel force had made professional assessment. Official response represented superior capability requiring operational adjustment. Colonel Reynosa's military background likely provided clear understanding of engagement parameters and associated risks. By 1700, the cartel withdrawal had become comprehensive. Personnel consolidating around transport assets, equipment prioritized for removal, security elements maintaining covering positions during retrograde movement. The operation that had begun as territory seizure was transitioning to tactical withdrawal under pressure. Marcus continued providing real-time intelligence throughout the evolution, enabling official response to maintain appropriate containment without premature engagement. The approach minimized potential conflict while maintaining operational pressure, forcing continued withdrawal. As sunset approached, the canyon contained significantly reduced cartel presence, approximately 30 personnel remaining with others apparently withdrawn through southern exit. Colonel Reynosa remained on-site, personally directing retrograde operation with professional discipline evident throughout execution. The official response maintained containment position, neither advancing nor withdrawing. Appropriate tactical patience allowing cartel force to select retreat rather than confrontation. The approach demonstrated professional restraint and operational maturity. By nightfall, only security element remained in canyon. Approximately 15 personnel providing withdrawal coverage while final equipment removal completed. Their positioning and behavior indicated temporary presence rather than renewed operational intent. Marcus maintained observation throughout night, documenting final cartel elements departing southern exit by approximately 0230. The withdrawal appeared complete. All significant equipment removed, personnel extracted, position abandoned. Colonel Reynosa's operation had concluded not through combat defeat, but professional assessment of changed operational conditions. As dawn illuminated empty canyon, official response initiated detailed sweep operation. Tactical teams clearing remaining structures, documenting abandoned equipment, securing scene for intelligence collection. Marcus provided final observational intelligence before formally integrating with official element. The operation that began as individual interdiction had evolved through escalating phases into coordinated official response. Force recon methodology applied to homeland defense, demonstrating both the capability of individual operator and the necessity of integrated security approach against significant threat. Serpent Canyon returned to silence, but transformed by events, no longer unnamed passage, but documented terrain in ongoing security operation. The battle for control had established new reality. Territory forever, changed by conflict regardless of outcome. 3 days after the cartel withdrawal, Marcus stood on his cabin porch, watching federal agents complete their final evidence collection in the canyon below. The operation had evolved beyond anything he'd anticipated when first detecting the cartel's advance team. What began as personal territory defense had escalated into multi-agency security operation with international implications. "They'll be finishing up today," Mike said, joining him at the railing. His Border Patrol uniform looked crisp despite the dust and heat, professional appearance maintained even in field conditions. FBI's got enough evidence to build serious case against Reynosa's organization. Marcus nodded, observing the methodical movement of investigators through former cartel positions. Their thorough documentation would provide intelligence value beyond this specific incident. Patterns, equipment, tactical approaches, all contributing to broader understanding of cartel evolution. Abandoned equipment yielded significant intelligence, Mike continued. Communications systems, tactical gear, some documentation they didn't manage to remove. Looks like Reynosa was establishing permanent corridor, not just transit route, but controlled territory extending into U.S. The assessment matched Marcus's own analysis. The operation scale had indicated strategic rather than tactical objective, establishing infrastructure for ongoing operations rather than single smuggling attempt. Assessment on Reynosa? Marcus asked, professional interest in opposing commander's status. Back across border according to intelligence, taking significant heat from cartel leadership over operational failure. Mike paused, choosing words carefully. Sources suggest his position is compromised. Former military connections keeping him alive for now, but authority diminished. The information represented important development beyond tactical victory. Colonel Reynosa's operational failure had strategic implications for cartel leadership structure. Professional military influence potentially reduced following unsuccessful territory effort. Local impact? Marcus asked, attention shifting toward community considerations. Significant. Sheriff Harkness resigned yesterday, claimed health reasons officially, but obvious connection to investigation of his passive cooperation. 2 deputies also departed, similar circumstances. The law enforcement accountability represented important secondary effect. Cartel corruption typically remained unaddressed following operational engagements. Lack of evidence or political will often protecting compromised officials. This outcome suggested more comprehensive aftermath than typical border security operations. Town response. Marcus continued, community integration becoming increasingly important consideration in his analysis. Mixed. Relief over cartel removal but concern over increased federal presence. Standard small-town reaction, outside attention unwelcome regardless of costs. Mike gestured toward Kingsnake in the distance. Though your status has definitely evolved. The observation prompted rare smile. Marcus had noticed changed interaction during necessary supply runs, community members no longer maintaining polite distance but engaging directly, expressing gratitude despite limited information about his specific involvement. The reserved acknowledgement from town residents who valued privacy and independence spoke volumes about perception shift. Eleanor's telling everyone you single-handedly fought off entire cartel battalion, Mike added with characteristic dry humor. Growth rate suggests you'll have personally eliminated entire Sinaloa organization by next weekend according to local narrative. Marcus shook his head, discomfort with attention evident but tempered by understanding of community psychology. Small towns created narratives that reinforced identity, the story becoming more important than strict factual accuracy. His satellite phone rang, unfamiliar number with federal government prefix. Marcus answered with characteristic efficiency. Mr. Reeves, this is Agent Keller, FBI Southwest Border Division. The caller identified himself. I'm leading investigation into the Serpent Canyon incident. Your cooperation has been noted and appreciated at highest levels. We'd like to discuss potential ongoing consultation regarding cartel tactical evolution if you're amenable. The request represented official recognition of his expertise and contribution, validation from system he'd operated alongside but separate from. Force recon training emphasized mission completion rather than recognition, but acknowledgement from legitimate authority carried professional significance. Available to assist as needed, Marcus responded, commitment to security transcending personal preference for isolation. The conversation continued briefly, establishing parameters for potential consultation without compromising his independence or privacy. The arrangement recognized both his valuable expertise and his need for operational autonomy, respect from one professional to another. After completing the call, Marcus turned to Mike. They're creating formal task force. Want technical advisor with direct experience against Reynosa's tactics. Told you this would change things, Mike observed. Hard to maintain complete isolation after something like this. Your skills are too valuable in current security environment. The assessment was accurate but complicated. Marcus had chosen Serpent Canyon specifically for its separation from operational theaters, distance from both physical conflict and psychological demands of continuous security engagement. The recent events had effectively eliminated that separation, reconnecting him to professional identity he'd partially set aside. Could be beneficial, Mike continued, recognizing Marcus's hesitation. Structured engagement on your terms. Application of experience without full reintegration into system. Balance. The perspective held merit. Force recon training emphasized adaptability, adjusting to changing operational conditions rather than maintaining rigid parameters when environment evolved. Perhaps complete isolation had represented overcorrection rather than optimal solution. We'll consider options, Marcus acknowledged, decision requiring thorough assessment rather than immediate commitment. They stood in silence for several minutes, watching federal teams complete final evidence collection below. The canyon landscape remained physically unchanged but contextually transformed. No longer anonymous terrain, but documented security concern with official attention and resources. Community meeting tonight at Town Hall, Mike finally said. Border Patrol briefing residents on security changes, answering questions about increased presence. Might be good for you to attend. The suggestion would have been immediately dismissed weeks earlier. Public gatherings representing unnecessary exposure and unwanted attention. Now, the calculation included additional factors: community integration, information access, potential contribution to civilian security understanding. We'll consider that as well, Marcus replied, decision pending full situational assessment. Mike departed shortly after, returning to official duties with Border Patrol. The agency had received significant positive attention following successful operation, resources and recognition flowing to previously overlooked sector based on operational result. Left alone, Marcus conducted thorough property inspection, habit maintained despite confirmed cartel withdrawal. The cabin showed minor damage from tactical team entry during their search for him, already repaired through his efforts. The surveillance system had been enhanced rather than diminished by recent events, lessons from operational engagement incorporated into improved security approach. As evening approached, Marcus made decision that would have been unthinkable before recent events. He changed into clean civilian attire, secured the property, and drove toward town for the community meeting. The evolution represented significant personal adjustment, movement toward engagement rather than isolation based on changed security assessment. Kingsnake Town Hall was filled beyond capacity when he arrived. Residents crowded into modest municipal buildings seeking information and reassurance following dramatic events. Marcus entered quietly, positioning himself near rear exit with clear sight lines to all entrances. Force recon habits maintaining situational awareness even in supposedly secure environment. His presence was noticed immediately, conversation pausing briefly before resuming with increased energy. The reaction demonstrated his changed status within community, no longer anonymous resident, but recognized security figure regardless of limited public information about specific involvement. Eleanor approached directly, characteristic forthrightness unchanged by recent events. About time you joined a town meeting, she said without preamble. Been telling folks they've had genuine hero living up in that canyon for years. Marcus acknowledged her comment with slight nod, uncomfortable with characterization, but recognizing genuine sentiment behind it. Force recon training emphasized mission accomplishment above recognition. public attention representing operational vulnerability rather than validation. The meeting began with Border Patrol representatives explaining increased security presence, additional patrols, surveillance systems, community reporting procedures. The presentation was professional, appropriately balanced between reassurance and realistic threat assessment. Citizens asked practical questions focused on immediate security concerns rather than political implications, characteristic pragmatism of border community familiar with complex regional dynamics. When officially scheduled presentation concluded, informal conversations continued throughout the building. Marcus found himself approached by multiple community members, some expressing direct gratitude for perceived role in cartel removal, others seeking practical security advice for homes and businesses. The interactions remained brief but represented significant evolution in his community integration. Sheriff Harkness's replacement, interim leader pending special election, made point of speaking with Marcus directly. "Appreciate having someone with your experience in our community," the woman said, introducing herself as Deputy Chief Rivera, now acting sheriff. "Hope we can establish better relationship than previous administration maintained." The outreach represented potential partnership rather than jurisdictional tension, professional recognition of complementary capabilities rather than authority competition. Force recon operations had demonstrated repeatedly that effective security required integration of multiple capabilities, official and unofficial working in coordinated approach rather than isolated effort. "Available if needed," Marcus replied, standard response evolving into genuine commitment rather than perfunctory acknowledgement. As meeting concluded, Marcus found himself engaged in conversation with local rancher whose property bordered Canyon's southern entrance. The man described increased security measures implemented following cartel incursion, improved observation systems, communication protocols, personnel awareness training. "Figured if you can defend your section with just one man, we ought to manage something reasonable with 12 ranch hands," the rancher concluded, practical perspective characteristic of local approach. "Been neighbors 3 years without proper introduction. That should change moving forward." The interaction highlighted broader community transformation, increased security awareness coupled with strengthened internal connections. The cartel incursion had paradoxically improved regional security posture through necessity-driven cooperation and information sharing. Marcus drove home under star-filled desert sky, mind processing implications of community engagement. Force recon training had emphasized operational independence, but also stressed mission context, ultimate security objective beyond specific tactical engagement. Perhaps effective regional security required balanced approach between necessary isolation and strategic community integration. The cabin appeared unchanged upon return, automated systems confirming no security compromise during absence. Marcus completed standard security check before settling on porch. Desert night surrounding him as it had countless times before. The physical environment remained identical, but context had transformed completely. No longer refuge from operational theater, but forward position in ongoing security effort. Sleep came slowly that night, mind active with decision processing rather than tactical assessment. The cartel incursion had forced immediate response based on established training, but aftermath required more complex evaluation. What role should former force recon operator take in civilian security environment? What balance between isolation and integration would provide optimal contribution while maintaining necessary separation from institutional constraints? The answers wouldn't come immediately, complex situations requiring thorough assessment rather than impulsive decision. But framework for evaluation had clarified through recent experience. Security represented continuous spectrum rather than binary state. Effective contribution required engagement calibrated to specific threats and community needs rather than rigid operational parameters. Marcus awoke at dawn as always, automated protocols initiating day regardless of philosophical considerations. The morning light illuminated Canyon newly empty of cartel presence, but forever changed by their incursion. Territory once anonymous now carried historical significance, documented conflict zone rather than overlooked terrain feature. His satellite phone displayed notification of missed message, Mike providing update on intelligence developments. Colonel Reynosa had reportedly been recalled to Central Cartel leadership for operational review. Standard military accountability applied to criminal organization. The professional military influence within cartel structure had been compromised by operational failure, potentially reducing tactical sophistication of future operations. The information represented important strategic development beyond tactical victory. Cartel evolution toward military operational approach had constituted significant security escalation, criminal organization adopting nation-state methodologies and capabilities. The trend reversal following Serpent Canyon failure potentially indicated important inflection point in broader security environment. As morning sun cleared Canyon rim, Marcus began property maintenance routine. Practical tasks maintaining operational effectiveness regardless of strategic considerations. The work provided familiar structure while mind processed complex implications of recent events and potential future engagement. The canyon stretched below his position, terrain unchanged but context transformed. No longer merely personal territory, but documented security concern with official acknowledgement and response capability. The transformation extended beyond physical space to personal identity. Isolation compromised by demonstrated capability and community recognition. Force recon had taught adaptability above all, environment assessment and appropriate response rather than rigid operational parameters regardless of changing conditions. The lesson applied now as it had during active service, evolution required by changed circumstances rather than personal preference. Marcus Reeves, former Force Recon Marine, stood at transition point, not return to previous operational identity, but evolution toward new security contribution appropriately calibrated to current environment. The balance would require careful maintenance, sufficient engagement to provide valuable expertise without compromising necessary independence and operational effectiveness. The desert wind carried distant sound of Border Patrol helicopter conducting scheduled overflight. New security pattern established following recent events. Marcus watched its path with professional assessment, noting appropriate altitude for observation without revealing patrol schedule through predictable timing. Security, like desert landscape, remained constantly evolving despite appearance of unchanging terrain. Adaptation determined survival. Individual, community, nation. Force Recon had preserved that wisdom through generations of operators facing varied threats across changing environments. Marcus returned to cabin interior, reviewing topographic map of regional terrain beyond immediate canyon. The broader security environment required comprehensive understanding, not merely personal territory, but connected landscape with multiple potential approach vectors and vulnerability points. The transformation continued, invisible but fundamental, isolation becoming integration, individual becoming component, territory becoming homeland. Not through dramatic declaration, but gradual professional evolution based on operational reality and security requirement. Serpent Canyon would never return to anonymous passage status. Conflict had established historical significance regardless of future developments. Similarly, Marcus Reeves would never return to complete isolation, demonstrated capability creating responsibility that transcended personal preference for separation. The desert sun continued its arc overhead, illuminating transformed landscape below. Force Recon Marine turned reluctant civilian defender turned recognized security asset. Evolution continuing through necessity rather than choice. Capability determining role regardless of preference. Marcus Reeves accepted transformation as he had accepted countless operational developments during active service, assessment, adaptation, continued mission focus regardless of change parameters. The canyon remained his position, but mission had evolved beyond personal territory defense to broader security contribution appropriately calibrated to specific capability and community need. The Force Recon Marine continued his watch, transformed but undiminished. 2 weeks after the cartel's withdrawal from Serpent Canyon, the landscape had returned to its natural state. Federal investigators had completed their work, removing the last evidence of the confrontation. To casual observers, the canyon appeared unchanged, ancient rock formations standing silent under desert sun, natural passage cutting through mountains as it had for millennia. But Marcus Reeves knew better. Standing on his cabin porch, surveying the terrain that had become battlefield, he recognized the permanent transformation beneath superficial restoration. The canyon now existed in official databases, security assessments, intelligence reports. No longer anonymous terrain, but documented strategic location with established history and ongoing monitoring. His satellite phone chimed. Secure message from Mike confirming Border Patrol's new patrol schedule incorporating regular canyon surveillance. The arrangement represented formal acknowledgement of the passage's security significance, permanent integration into broader border defense network following demonstrated vulnerability. More significant was the follow-up message, confirmation that Colonel Reynosa had been removed from operational command within cartel hierarchy, reportedly reassigned to administrative position without field authority. The development represented important strategic victory beyond tactical success. Professional military influence within criminal organization diminished following operational failure. Marcus had accepted limited advisory role with Joint Task Force established following incident, providing technical expertise on cartel tactical evolution while maintaining personal independence. The arrangement respected both his valuable experience and his need for operational autonomy, balance between isolation and integration appropriate to specific capability and temperament. In Kingsnake, community security consciousness had evolved significantly. Unofficial neighborhood watch established regular communication protocols. Ranch owners coordinated observation posts covering potential approach routes. Even local businesses participated, sharing information about suspicious activities through secure channels established with acting Sheriff Rivera's support. The transformation extended beyond physical security measures to community psychology. No longer passive territory awaiting protection but active participants in regional defense. Marcus had provided limited training to key personnel, observation techniques, communication security, threat assessment methodology. Not creating vigilantes, but enhancing legitimate security awareness appropriately calibrated to civilian capability. Eleanor's store now hosted monthly security briefing, informal gathering where residents shared observations and concerns with local law enforcement and Border Patrol representatives. The integration of official and community security elements represented optimal approach to regional protection, layered defense incorporating appropriate capabilities at each level. As sunset painted canyon walls with golden light, Marcus reflected on Force Recon lessons applied to homeland defense. The military principles translated effectively to civilian security context, intelligence-driven operations, asymmetric response, psychological operation integration, terrain utilization. Professional methodology adapting to specific operational environment regardless of official designation. The cartel's defeat was undeniable. Sophisticated operation neutralized through combination of individual expertise and coordinated response. Though some questioned the extent of Marcus's actions, most celebrated the powerful message sent. America does not bow to intimidation, even in remote territories far from public attention. Marcus, humble yet firm, quietly stepped back from the limelight, continuing his duties without fanfare, steadfast in the moral clarity of defending his nation's sovereignty at its very borders. His story stood as testament to an enduring American truth that genuine strength lies not in aggression, but in preparedness, resolve, and unwavering commitment to justice and liberty for all. What do you think about this incredible stand? Do you believe strength alone guarantees justice, or does real power lie in partnership, strategy, and bravery? Share your perspective in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping real-life stories of courage in the face of overwhelming odds.